Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did. So let's get started. Number 5 was Evil Dead Rise, making $2.4 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $64 million and a worldwide total of $141 million. So Evil Dead was able to do the unthinkable this weekend and surpass Shazam! Fury of the Gods to become Warner Brothers' biggest movie of the year, both domestically and worldwide. Again, not on my 2023 bingo card, yet here we are. Once again, it shows the popularity of the Evil Dead franchise, while also, again, how much a behemoth horror is right now. Horror is just really dominating, and because of its cheap budget, is insanely profitable. People just like being scared, I guess. And what's also crazy too is that I didn't realize this until a couple days ago, that the movie is also already on video on demand, yet is still doing very well in theaters, which is still, again, very impressive to say the least. While it wasn't able domestically to get quite to the heights of Megan or Scream 6, this is still a very solid run at the box office, and while it may be leaving the top 5 and will probably get hurt by the next horror film on the horizon, this is still a very solid total. I'm sure everyone at Warner Brothers and everyone who made the movie is very happy with how successful this movie has become, and it leaves the top 5 while surpassing a pretty big milestone for it. Not much more else to say except good job. Number 4 was Book Club 2, making $3 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $13 million and a worldwide total of $18 million. So as I expected, it had a much bigger drop-off than I think the studio was hoping for. Word of mouth is just not doing this movie any favors. It dropped 55% from last weekend, plummeted all the way to number 4. This is just not a good hold for this movie. As to put this into perspective, the first film made $13 million in just 3 days. This took like about a week to get to that milestone. I think it's safe to say that there has just been no interest for this movie. I think they were hoping for like an 80 for Brady type run, maybe even A Man Called Otto, where it gears towards older audiences, and because of that, it's able to have a much leggier run, but I don't think this is the case. Again, there was just no interest, lack of buzz, and from the people who have seen it, I don't think they really liked it, so they're not going to encourage others to go see it. I appreciate the effort. I could kind of see where this could have been a sleeper hit. I mean, the first one was a sleeper hit, but unfortunately, lightning does not strike twice for the Book Club franchise. Don't think we'll be seeing any more Book Club movies, sadly. Just an overall lackluster run for Book Club 2. Number 3 was the Super Mario Bros. Movie, making $9.6 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $549 million and a worldwide total of $1.2 billion. So the movie was able to surpass another milestone this weekend, as it was able to surpass Incredibles 2 to become the 3rd biggest animated film of all time worldwide. Domestically, it's still $50 million behind Incredibles 2, but that's besides the point. To be honest, I never thought I'd see the day this movie would surpass Incredibles 2. I thought it would tap out at least $1.17 billion, but here we are. It's the 3rd highest grossing animated film of all time right now. All that's in its way right now is Frozen and Frozen 2. We'll see if it can surpass those movies, but man, what an accomplishment. Just the sheer legs, the fact that this movie continues to do as well as it has and has surpassed this many milestones alone, and the movie's only been out for like a little over a month. Like, this is insane. Of course, this weekend is going to be, actually this weekend and next weekend are going to be the biggest challenges for this movie, as this weekend brings us the first family film since Mario's release, and next weekend brings us the first animated film since Mario's release. So we'll see how the movie faces off against those two tent poles. I think those are going to be where we start seeing the Mario get hurt a little for sure, but even that's not going to affect how massive this movie has already become. Like, my goodness, like, is any other movie this year going to surpass this? I think there's probably going to be one that comes close, but nothing is going to top this or surpass this. So yeah, overall, another solid weekend for the Super Mario Brothers movie. We'll see how it does in the coming weeks where it faces off its first big threats. But yeah, this is still just an absolute behemoth of a movie. We'll see if it still has any steam left in the tank. But yeah, I've said it once and I'll say it again. Great job, Illumination and Nintendo. You've really knocked it out the park with this one. Number 2 was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, making $32 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $266 million and a worldwide total of $659 million. So despite some stiff competition this weekend, the movie actually held a bit better than I was expecting. It only dropped 48% from last weekend, which is very impressive. Definitely not an Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania situation, thankfully. And it shows that, once again, the word of mouth is just really carrying this thing on its shoulders. Everyone is telling everyone to go check this out, and I definitely think it's helping this movie for the better. It's definitely going to surpass $300 million domestically very soon, and $700 million worldwide. We'll see if it can get to $800 million. For sure. I don't think this is going to get to $1 billion, unfortunately. It's just that opening was a bit on the lower end of the high spectrum, if you will. But yeah, this is still doing very well. I don't see how anyone can look at these numbers and feel like, oh, this is a huge disappointment. I think this is definitely a much needed win for Marvel right now, and it shows that this movie has some staying power. We'll see how it continues to face off against the stiff competition for the rest of the summer. But yeah, things are looking pretty good for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And finally, let's end the video off with the number 1 movie of the weekend, which was Fast X, opening with $67 million this weekend domestically and $318 million worldwide. This is the 7th biggest opening weekend for a Fast and Furious film, the 2nd biggest opening weekend of the summer movie season, obviously behind Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but topping Book Club 2 and Love Again, and is the 5th biggest opening weekend of the year. It was able to knock Creed 3 out of the top 5, but it sits behind John Wick Chapter 4, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and the Super Mario Brothers movie. This has got to be one of the most fascinating and interesting opening weekends I've discussed on this show, because there is such a big divide between the domestic numbers and the international numbers. They both tell very different stories. Let's start with the domestic numbers. It was able to have a better opening than Hobbs and Shaw, which is good, but it came under F9 The Fast Saga, which is surprising to me. I thought this movie might do a bit better given the response to the trailers and the marketing, but I guess the last one really wasn't it for a lot of people, as I definitely felt like a lot of people thought that was a bit underwhelming. A lot of people agreed with me on that, so I think that probably affected this film's opening pretty much. And again, it was still very surprising because the last one came out under worse circumstances. Everyone was still a bit iffy about returning to the movie theaters. You know, COVID was still a pretty significant figure in everything. It was affecting everybody. So the fact that this opened less than that pretty much shows that, yeah, the last film probably hurt this new film a bit more than we expected. So I'm definitely very interested to see where this movie goes from here, because audiences weren't too kind to this movie either. It got a B+ on CinemaScore, one of 2 films in this franchise to get that rating, the only other one being the first film, believe it or not. So we'll see how its legs are. We'll see if it can muster up, maybe revitalize this franchise. But given the competition, I'm very concerned over its legs domestically, because internationally this movie killed it. As you may know, this movie has a ridiculously high budget of $340 million that is due to a lot of production issues going on. during the making of this movie, the director quit halfway through. There was some on-set feuds with like Vin Diesel and whatnot, and of course COVID. But yeah, this movie has a ridiculously high budget, but thanks to the international box office, it's pretty much made almost all of that back, and it's probably going to surpass that initial budget by the end of this week. So very interesting stories going on. Domestically, this franchise might be slowing down, but internationally, this franchise is still big and grand. So if anything, if there is any saving grace, if anything else, the international numbers will carry this to victory. It may be profitable. It might be able to double its budget thanks to the international numbers, because right now those international markets are doing the heavy lifting, as domestically tells a different story. Audiences are probably not as enthusiastic to see these movies. We'll see where it goes from here. We'll see how big the drop off is this coming weekend. But yeah, it's a very interesting opening weekend for this movie. I can't really tell if it's good or bad. So yeah, this is one we're just gonna have to wait and see how it turns out. Definitely gonna be interesting given the budget and the differentiations between domestic and international. But yeah, very fascinating and interesting opening weekend for sure. And those were your top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, but we're not quite done yet as we got another week ahead of us and new movies hitting theaters. It is Memorial Day weekend, so I hope you all have a very safe, happy Memorial Day weekend. Spend your time with loved ones, stay safe out there, and just have a happy Memorial Day. But in regards to films, there are 2 major wide releases hitting theaters this weekend. I know that The Machine is also hitting theaters, but I have very low expectations for that movie given the very minimal marketing I've seen for it and the lack of buzz for it. So let's move on to the other 2 movies, starting with About My Father. This is a comedy that's, I think, loosely based off personal life events for Sebastian Maniscalco, introducing his father to his fiance's family. I think I'm not too sure about that, but I do know that that's pretty much the premise of the movie, just introducing his father. Now, I initially had little expectations for this movie. I thought it was going to tank, but the marketing so far has been slightly better than I was expecting it to do. They're definitely promoting this a lot more than I thought they would. I got the trailers a handful of times in front of certain movies that I wasn't expecting to see the trailer in front of, and I've definitely seen a lot more ads for it than I was expecting for it. They're really starting to promote the movie. But the downside is it is only slightly better than I was expecting. The ad campaign is still pretty minimal. Not to the point where I say it's very solid marketing. I haven't seen it an extensive amount of time, certainly more than I was expecting, but still not a lot. And the buzz is pretty lackluster. Don't know too many people talking about this movie, so we'll just see. We'll see. Maybe it can surprise, be a sleeper hit, but I have low expectations. Then the other film hitting theaters this weekend is The Little Mermaid, another iteration of these live-action Disney remakes that's garnered definitely a much bigger discussion online than I think a lot of people were expecting, but this is not the video to discuss that for. This is about box office, and I have very high expectations for this movie. These Disney live action remakes make so much money, and since this is based off of The Little Mermaid, the film that was said to kick off the Disney Renaissance, I think this is going to be a juggernaut, and Halle Bailey's performance as Ariel has garnered positive reception online. I think that's the basis for the amount of people that want to see this movie. The marketing has been excellent, seeing tons of ads and trailers for this all over the place. And like I said earlier, it is the first family film to hit theaters since Mario, but it is also the first family film of the summer. And I think that's really going to be a big boost for this movie. The fact that it's been so long since a family film has come out, but also since kids are starting to head into the summer, leave school, for the summer, I think a lot of families are getting ready to kickstart the summer for their kids by seeing this new Disney movie hitting theaters. So yeah, overall, I have very high expectations. I think this movie is going to crush it this Memorial Day weekend. But we'll see how well this movie truly does, as well as the rest of the movies that land in the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied, unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.